Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and today I want to look at the chart of Woody Allen, actor, comedian, writer, producer, and very controversial figure. And I know he's probably triggers a lot of um, negative feelings and sentiments towards him for some of the things that he's been accused of or actually did, and whether he did or did not do any of the things that he was accused of. It's not my concern here. He is a real talent anyway, regardless of his character, but we're going to look at that. And astrology is for everyone, whether they're criminals or saints or somewhere in between. And it's important to understand that and to, not just have this idea that I'm only going to look at the charts of those people who I think are good people who never did anything bad. I mean, well, that would not be a very good astrological practice, because you have to understand what makes people do good things and what makes people do bad things, and what their motivations are. And, humans are oftentimes, full of contradictions and nuances. And, I had somebody comment that they didn't like Arnold Schwarzenegger because he did all these things, and that's not really the point. I mean, the point is to understand and learn, and I'm not going to just cherry pick the people that I like and exclude the people that I don't like based on what I know about what they did. Also, people are easily fooled by people's persona, by their surface persona. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but I know, like, I'll probably cover this in some other videos that are relevant to it. But there are people who think that certain celebrities are very good people, and I know for a fact that they're like child traffickers and pedophiles themselves, and Satanists, and murderers. And they're like, and if you don't dig beneath the surface, you're like, oh, so and so is such a good person, and they do so much good work. And I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea. This is like the devil, personified. This is like Satan's henchman. So it's all relative. You might think somebody's a great person, you just don't know all their skeletons in their closet. And then sometimes people get revealed for some of the things they've done. And yeah, it might be pretty bad, but not nearly as bad as a lot of the other people who still maintain a pristine image in the mainstream eye. So anyway, I know there's some things about Woody Allen that are not great, or pretty gross, pretty disgusting, even, maybe, perhaps. But I'm still gonna look at his chart, and I'm still gonna appreciate what he did. And you gotta. Nobody's perfect, and I'm not making excuses for him. I do know that he married his let's just get into it. I'll talk about it while I'm looking at the chart. It'll make a lot more sense. All right. Woody Allen, despite all the controversies and negative things about him, is an incredible talent, incredibly funny. I mean, he makes people laugh. He makes me laugh. He's hilarious. He's a brilliant writer. And so, yeah, let's look at that. All right. First thing is that he's got his sun conjunct Jupiter and Mercury and Sagittarius in the fourth house. Okay, technically, I mean, first, second, third, fourth. Yeah, it's in the fourth house, but the fifth, it's also the fifth cusp is in Sagittarius also, but it's kind of far from that. So this, I would say, still much more fourth house, which is generally atypical for somebody like Woody Allen. But so Mercury is his ascendant lord, because his ascendant's in Virgo. It's also his 10th whole sign house lord. Okay. The 10th cusp is in Venus, which is also in great dignity, but right now we're looking at this. But the 10th whole sign house is Gemini. And so Mercury, he is very mercurial, right? He has that, that he's like a chatterbox, very nervous, and he writes extremely prolifically. Like, if you know anything about it, I just read his Wikipedia, which I always do. He was an incredibly prolific writer. He could just write. You could sit him in front of a typewriter, they said, and he could write for like 24 hours straight. And he was writing jokes for a lot of people early on. And he started doing it before the age of 20. Now, what helps with that tremendously is that Jupiter, by 1 degree, Jupiter in Sagittarius, that Jupiter is very, very strong. It is combust the sun, but it's not getting in the way. Jupiter's, leading this trio of planets here in Sagittarius in the 4th house. So this is expanding his intellect, his writing ability. Obviously, this Mercury is not very good for like science and math in school. Like, he dropped out of school, he went to college, dropped out of college. Yeah, so like he's not like he's self-taught. This Jupiter is expanding his intellectual mind, making it very sorry, my computer's doing stuff. Making it very big. Mercury likes to be small and detailed. Jupiter likes to be very big and expansive. And so typically you'd say that Jupiter and Mercury conjunction is not great, but it is good for some things, especially for comedy and philosophy in general. And he is a very comedic philosopher. Like, if you listen to his, a lot of his movies, he waxes philosophically, but in a very funny way, comedic way. So Jupiter is making him very prolific and expansive, and it's also the 5th house ruler, 5th house cusp ruler. So 5th house for creativity, for performance. That's very beneficial, benefic. It's one of the two, great benefics, Jupiter and Venus, and they're both the great benefics. This is a nighttime chart, so Venus is considered the most beneficial planet in traditional astrology, and Venus is in Libra, in the 2nd house, coming up to the 3rd house cusp, but it's in the 2nd whole sign house. So voice, so acting, speaking, comedy. He was a stand-up comedian. So writing and speaking right away, and it's also the MC ruler. So Venus and Mercury both are career indicators here. And here's the 2nd house. So, not only career, but speaking, acting. And then from the Mercury, we get the writing and communicating. And those were his 2 main things. I mean, he's equally as famous for making movies as he is for acting in them and being a funny man. Venus here is excellent for making money. And it also indicates, Venus in Libra also indicates, just in general, that he values relationships a lot, which he does. A lot of his movies are all about relationships. He's just very relationship oriented in general. There is a nice trine from the moon in Aquarius in the 6th house. And moon is ruling the 11th house. So 6th house is a difficult house typically because it brings a lot of conflict, enemies, competition. So we can tell that groups, networks, career success is leading towards conflict in general. But this does make a good for a good mind because of the sixth house influence is you know, originally Virgo's house. So it's a very like good place for having like critical thinking ability, right? And editorial. And also Aquarius. People don't give Aquarius enough credit for being the sign of comedy. You know, people think Gemini being the Joker, which it is a lot of times. You know, Gemini has a great sense of humor. Aquarius has better sense of humor, and I'm a Gemini, and I'm just like, I'll say it because I've looked at enough charts. The best comedians, all the greatest comedians, have very strong Aquarius, um, Aquarius planets and chart, and yeah, strong Aquarius sign. And the reason is because Aquarius is not only, you know, out of the box, original, scientific, but it's just absurd. Aquarius loves the absurdity because it's just so far out there that it just like can see the absurdity in everything, and that's what makes people laugh. Absurdity is hilarious when things go to that absurd point. That's what it just instinctually makes us laugh, right? And so when you have that, when you have like any strong planets in Aquarius, there's the potential for it to turn into humor. It can go different ways, right? Obviously, it can go towards science. It can go towards concern for society, like social issues. It can go towards like conspiratorial type stuff, you know, invention, you know, astrology, just out of the box. So it depends on the whole chart, but definitely for comedy, you're going to see very often a lot of Aquarius. So, and that's good because now his Venus and his moon are connecting very well. And Venus being the second house, technically by quadrant, second and third house ruler, but definitely second house, and MC ruler, which is the actually the ninth whole sign house, but the MC is in Taurus. So career, connecting with comedy. So that's very strong. And then we have Neptune in the first house. And then Neptune, obviously, for anything creative, film, movies, photography, fantasy, all that sort of thing. You know, of course, in you know, it'll express differently in different charts. It has other connotations, but here, very much has to do with creativity and movies and that sort of thing. Also very strong fifth house with North Node and Mars and Vertex in Capricorn. So a lot of dignity, right? Jupiter in Sagittarius, Venus in Libra, Mars exalted in Capricorn. But the difficulty here is that Mars is ruling the eighth house. It's ruling the third house, so it's good for the third house because it's in dignity, Mars in Capricorn, right? So expression, I mean, technically Venus is ruling the third house cusp, but this is the third whole sign house. So Mars is ruling the third whole sign house in the fifth house, third and the fifth. So the expression, writing is going into creativity and performance. And so that's very good. And also North Node is here for you know, for the arts, for acting, for writing, for creativity. Oh, incidentally, Sun is ruling the 12th house in the fourth, so adding creativity as well. The 12th house is the house of imagination and, you know, Neptune and Jupiter. That's a original abode, Pisces. So that's also very good for creativity. Chiron is in the 10th house, and that's really interesting because, you know, Woody Allen has this very goofy, oddball, kind of strange appearance. And it's not just his appearance, it's his character, it's his public persona. right? And that's very much fits with the Chiron, especially in Gemini, because Gemini's has that tendency to be kind of, heady and nerdy. And Chiron and Gemini in the 10th house, this is like his public persona. Chiron is the wounded reject, I call it. Also the healer, the healer and the teacher, but that's like the higher evolution of Chiron. The lower evolution, the more basic, the original form of Chiron is the wounded reject. He's rejected by his mother, then he's wounded with a, poison arrow from Hercules. So Chiron definitely has that oddball, weirdo, reject, wounded, like just, and Woody Allen definitely takes that and uses that with his comedy routine. Like he is that, not very attractive, kind of thin, frail, weird looking, weird hair, just weirdo, oddball who's hilarious. He's hilarious and he's brilliant, but definitely has that Chironic appearance, which he uses to his advantage. South Node is in Cancer in the 11th house. So this is the house of career success. Hopes, wishes, dreams. But so South Node early on, success early on, career success early on for sure. And Pluto's here, so a lot of power and control in in that arena. Groups and networks as well. He's getting involved with groups and networks early on, which he did. He was involved with many people, writing jokes, and he just found his way into the in crowd right away as a young boy, before the age of 20, just with his ability to write jokes. So a lot of success right away, career success. Pluto is opposite Mars, and so that there is conflict here. There's a lot of tension in that because it's an opposition, so it's difficult. And then they're both rulers of Scorpio, but they're both powerhouses. Pluto more on the psychological level, Mars more on the physical aggressive level. So he's having a lot of conflict right away with in groups and networks and his creativity, just in general. And then Mars is ruling the 8th house. So Mars is a difficult planet for him. Because it's, the 8th house ruler brings a lot of crisis, death and rebirth, ruin towards, reputational ruin. So Mars is a real malefic. And even though it's in Capricorn, even though it's exalted, it especially because it's conjunct the North Node. It's pretty wide conjunction, but still, there's going to be that influence. North Node is where we become obsessive in a worldly way. We become very materialistic and hungry and desirous. And if it's conjunct Mars, this is the house of children also. Mars is ruling the 8th house, which is the house of sexuality, and Mars is a very sexual planet anyway. And opposite Pluto, it's like that's a real, like, issues with children. He has issues, sexual sexual molestation allegations. He married his adopted daughter, which is Saturn ruling the 5th house. It's actually not the 5th house cusp, but it's the 5th whole sign house. Is going in the 7th house of marriage, right? Conjunct the descendant, right? How odd is that, right? Fifth lord in the 7th house, and then he basically married his adopted daughter, and he was also accused of molestation of his actual daughter. Whether he did it or not, I don't know. Like some people say he's innocent, they can prove it. But he was accused, and that's the thing. Like whether he did it or not, it's that that tie to the eighth house, which is a house of it can ruin a person, really bring down a person because it's that death. So whatever's tied to the eighth house is causing kind of death. And then the 11th whole sign lord is in the sixth house of conflict. So yeah. Saturn is also ruling the sixth house in the seventh house. So conflict with children and partners. He divorced his wife, Mia Farrow. There was a lot of conflict there. Saturn is actually good here, but it's bringing in conflict because it's ruling the fifth and sixth. So, and then Saturn also is square to the degree Mercury, which is his ascendant lord and his 10th whole sign house lord. So there's a lot of conflict there. Saturn in general would be, that he's facing a lot of conflict. He's, running into authority. Ruling the sixth house, it's just, more conflict because of fifth house, so conflict with children. And his children, as far as I know, were in conflict with him even to like today because they were protested the release of his book that I guess the publishers pulled from production because of the protests from his children. So he's still facing a lot of conflict. Even though he's had tremendous success, he has these conflicts with children and partner. His family, basically, his outside family, the family that he produced, that he's, his ex-wife and his children are against him. That's this very strong square. So there's a lot of conflict and negativity we can see with Woody Allen for sure. Number one, Saturn, I don't know which order, but Saturn square Mercury, which is his ascendant lord, and Jupiter. And then Saturn ruling in fifth and sixth, Mars ruling eighth in the fifth, and Mars opposite Pluto. Uranus is in the ninth house, so religion-wise, he's going to be very he's not going to be orthodox. He's going to abandon religion. He's going to question religion. He's going to question philosophy. He's going to have, very out of the box, philosophical, religious type thinking. So yeah, that's what Uranus in the ninth does. It just you're not going to be tied down to a tradition in the past and following rules and traditions and all that. Unorthodox. Excuse me. Pluto sextile the MC, and that's quite good for career because Pluto brings a lot of power and weight and dynamism. It's a powerhouse, whatever power, if it's in good aspect to, whatever it's in good aspect to, then it really, then it helps. And whatever's in bad aspect to difficult aspect, it's a real challenge. Let's look at his Draconic chart because I think that adds a lot of dimension and I love looking at it. So right away we see a doubling over, of themes of Chiron here. Chiron is Draconic Chiron is right on the ascendant. So again, this goofy, weird, oddball kind of persona is reflected in the natal and Draconic chart. One's on the 10th house, one's on the MC. So Woody Allen's very Chironic. We're seeing that. South node on the second house cusp, Pluto. again in the second, so adding the more weight towards his voice, speaking, acting, stand-up comedy, and wealth, I guess. I don't know how Pluto does. I mean, well, Venus is much better for wealth. The South Node definitely shows skills and talents in that arena. And then Scorpio in the third house. So third house is very as well strong in his chart. And then Neptune in Sag over the Mercury, so adding that creative element to the writing ability again. And Neptune is for acting, for movies, for writing, for creativity. Now Venus is in Capricorn. That's not great for Venus. It's not the worst, but it again, Venus in the fifth, great for creativity, but now we have Mars and Venus, natal Mars and Draconic Venus in the fifth. So again, we're seeing a lot of things around children. And it is also conjunct the North Node by a few degrees, but the natal North Node. So, I mean, I wouldn't automatically assume this if somebody, I just say maybe they love children, right? Because wherever Venus is, that's where we have like joy, and we really have a casual, leisurely, a lot of, Venus is creativity and love, like where we're going to spend our free time, where we spend our free time in enjoyment, that's Venus. So creativity and children again. But look at this. This is really fascinating. And this is why I'm really starting to, the Draconic Chart, it really makes it come alive. Because of the Aquarian influence. Like we did have the moon in Aquarius, and Aquarius is like, whenever you see comedy, automatically, for me, I automatically look to Aquarius because I want to see strong Aquarian influences. And now we have Jupiter conjunct Mercury at 21 degrees Aquarius plus the sun. Now, Jupiter conjunct Mercury in Aquarius is, I believe, that's what Jim Carrey has natally. And Jerry Lewis, and I called this before I knew it. Like I just automatically made the connection. Jerry Lewis has Jupiter conjunct Venus in Aquarius. So very similar. So now Woody Allen we're seeing this as well. Still in the sixth house, which, that's probably not, I don't know, for writing and for directing and producing, I can see that makes a lot of sense. Not so much a comedian himself. I mean, yeah, he is a comedian, but like, additionally for the writing aspect, that's really important. And then we're also getting the Venus trine, the Draconic Mercury and Jupiter. So that's really good. North Node in the eighth house, and then Mars in Aries. Both Marses are in good dignity, but now Mars is in the eighth house, right? And North Node's on the eighth house cusp. So again, we're seeing, eighth house influence here, which is, death, rebirth, sex, sexuality. Also, notice the square. See, Mars is still opposite Pluto, and now it's square the natal nodes, indicating that this Mars-Pluto opposition is something that is a huge cause of tension for him in his life, and something that he's destined to deal with, because nodes deal with destiny. So something that he has to deal with in a very this is big square here. it's very you know, quite exact. Vertex as well. Vertex shows some fated destiny, you know. Often it's used in synastry for relationships, but I don't think it necessarily has to. I think there's something that can be, you know, in somebody's natal chart. Check out where your vertex is if you want to, you know, see where it gets activated. It's definitely seems to be getting activated by this square here. The nodes and Pluto. And the Mars in the 8th house opposite Pluto, which is, you know, the co-ruler of Scorpio and the nodes. That's intense. It's intense. 5th north node in the 5th house dealing with children. South node in the 11th house is career success. 2nd house, 8th house. So I mean, it all does really fit with the you know, the allegations, the sexual allegations that he faced. Now we're seeing this is technically 9th house, but it is approaching the MC. Is Draconic Saturn, Descendant, and Moon is exalted in Taurus. So that's quite good for, again, for his career success, you know, generally. It's ruling the 11th house. And then Saturn conjunct the MC, pretty close. If it's in good dignity, that is good for the career. And Saturn in Taurus is okay. Plus the dispositor natally Venus is quite good. And well, the Draconic Venus, not great, but it is in the 5th house, and that's good for creativity. Anyway, Uranus at 18 degrees Cancer, conjunct the South Node. Again, more originality. I mean, this is just, you know, it's good. This is not, I don't think it's too relevant, but it's adding to the 11th house, career success, and seeing the 12th. So a creative career, iconically. Anyway, I think this really adds a lot, especially with these planets and the square. You can just really see a lot more into Woody Allen's nature, his internal nature. The Draconic Chart reveals the sort of the nature of the nodes and the moon. It reveals the past and inner influences. It's more felt than seen, so it's like how he feels on the inside. Yeah, but that's pretty much it for Woody Allen. Oh, by the way, Venus is conjunct fixed star Spica, and that's one of the most benefic stars, and often is strong in people who have sudden fame. So he did. I mean, I don't know how sudden, but I mean, I guess it was gradual, but fame nonetheless. Sudden rise to success, or just rise to success in general. Yeah, so anyway, I think that's it. It does all seem to come together, the good and the bad and the ugly of Woody Allen. It seems to make sense, and yeah, it is what it is. What else can I say? I mean, love him, hate him, love him and hate him both. I don't know. It is what it is. So that's Woody Allen. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the book of reading, You can go to my website, macroastrology.com, or email me at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. And thanks. Bye.